a very warm welcome to Spa-Francorchamps for the fourth round of the 2019 Euroformula Open season. And this is the last weekend of what's been a very, very busy run for the Euroformula Open teams and drivers. Their third race weekend in 4 weeks, and this always one of the highlights of the season. The Spa-Francorchamps circuit typically produces some fantastic racing in the Euroformula Open Championship. Certainly that was the case last year, where we had one of the best races of the season, and with such a talent-filled entry, we should be in for another brilliant pair of races this weekend. This 25-minute session will set the grid for the first of the 2 races, and it is Ben Evans and Elliot Wood talking you through the action as you join us, Elliot, on a day that's not quite as breezy as it was yesterday.
Very strong winds in yesterday's second practice session, which did cause a few drivers to be destabilised in the cars, but as you have in Spa, it's a bit of a microclimate, so it could change at any second.
It certainly could. So in terms of the championship coming into the weekend then, it is Marino Sato who leads the way. He had an excellent weekend in Hockenheim with a first and a second place, where his main championship rival Liam Lawson had rotational moments in both races, and that pitched him to eventually finish on the podium just once in the course of the weekend. We've got some new faces on the grid this weekend in Spa as well, and we will be certainly keeping an eye on the progress of Franco Colapinto, who moves up from Spanish Formula 4 this weekend. Colapinto, who is backed by Fernando Alonso. We've also got the CF Racing team, who have joined the championship for the first time. Stefano Lini and Stuart Wiltshire are their 2 drivers. Otherwise, we have got much the same cast of characters that we have seen so far this season. And what we also saw in free practice yesterday was that Marino Sato, who seems to be the form driver at the moment in the championship, was the pace setter.
He set the pace in the morning session, and because of the high winds, we didn't see the pace improving in the afternoon as much. But it's very interesting that when the weather conditions did change, we saw a completely different order of pace. So it may not be that Motor Park is fastest, as we've seen previously, and it could be one of the other teams that could surprise her.
Yeah, Team Motor Park have won 5 of the 6 races so far this season. It was Billy Munger who claimed victory in the other of them, and that was, of course, the Grand Prix of Po. But it's a long lap here at Spa, so they are busy at the moment on just warming up the Michelin tyre. But because of that, the strategy that the team's going to use through the course of this qualifying session is going to be quite interesting, because at Hockenheim a couple of weeks ago, because that was a relatively short lap, they could go out on scrub tyres, dial the cars in, come in, have a mid-session pit stop, go out, and they've got several flying laps available to them with the time remaining. That's not so much the case here at Spa.
Because of the length of the lap, it means you get less laps in during a session. And like we mentioned before, the microclimate, it also means that within a lap, you could have a change in conditions, which may require changing tyres because it's raining, or the wind will change direction while you're going down the Kemmel Straight, and it can completely change proceedings.
Well, we've got a brace of Team Motor Park runners flying in formation, possibly assisting each other with the tow, and that would appear to be... or is that Franco Colapinto and Rui Andrade in the DriveX cars? We'll see in a moment when we get a slightly closer look at them. Either way, it's the 66 car, that's Franco Colapinto, who is currently second, and it would appear to be teammate Andrade with whom he flies in formation. Colapinto well set here to follow on in the tow behind his teammate as they plunge down towards Eau Rouge and Radion. Because one of the nice things about this track is that you can slipstream, and that does help to keep the cars together in the race.
It does, and it always produces incredible racing here at Spa-Francorchamps. I went on a track guide with one of the teams yesterday, and they were talking through how much curb you have to take on certain corners, and it's actually the run down from the first turn can affect most of the first 2 sectors of the lap. So if you get a slipstream early on, you could get almost a second quicker on your lap.
And it's Christian Hahn and Aldo Fastante who run in tow. It's currently Jack Doohan who is the quickest driver in the session. We haven't seen yet the Team Motorpark runners taking to the circuit, or indeed Billy Munger. So interesting strategies being deployed thus far in this qualifying session. Maybe they've seen something on the weather radar that we haven't, or maybe they just want to do one run. Oh, and Christian Hahn, living dangerously into Pouhon then, was slithering on the AstroTurf, held it all together. But that is not going to just ruin his lap, it's also going to ruin that of Aldo Fastante, who had to visibly back out the throttle there as they headed towards Fagnes.
The cars are running very closely here in the twisty middle sector of the lap. And it's quite easy to understeer through this section when you are in the wake of another car. So it's an unusual strategy these guys are employing at the moment.
But I guess they're banking on the fact that they've then got the two long, fast sections that really bookend the lap. And if they can get close to their rivals, they might benefit from a little bit of a tow. The middle sector, though, in terms of time, comprises almost half of the lap as Christian Hahn closes up on Franco Colapinto. Looks to the inside of him into the bus stop chicane. Oh, and Colapinto slithers wide. And remind you, this is a qualifying session, and so therefore this 5-car dice, as they've now been caught by Jack Doohan, possibly what they'll be aspiring to, as Lucas Dunner goes fastest for Teo Martin Motorsport, as Colapinto snatches a break. Christian Hahn goes around the outside of him. Now here is Hahn's moment into Pouhon, and that will have felt very dramatic from where he was sitting. So in terms of the classification, it's Dunner from Doohan, then Linus Lundqvist in third, Nicolas Kjærgaard in fourth, then Guillaume Samaia in fifth. Here is then Lucas Dunner, the present pace setter.
Interestingly, his first sector is actually the quickest. Oh, well, the times have changed now, but it was quickest without a tow.
As Javier Gonzalez goes fastest for RP Motorsport. So RP Motorsport back, having skipped the past couple of weekends, and a 2 minutes 12.444, Javier Gonzalez.
Very impressive lap with a return. Lucas Dunner almost made the same mistake he made in free practice yesterday. Came out of Lacombe and slid over the curbs, which caused the car to get very loose. Did save it, but I imagine that would have cost him some time.
It has, well, fractionally cost him some time. Jack Doohan well up in the first sector, but I wouldn't read too much in that for Doohan because he was right in that gaggle of cars that we were watching. Unless he's been able to carve through them, unlikely that he would have been in some clear air, as Liam Lawson and Marino Sato have emerged onto the circuit, as has Billy Munger. Now I just wonder, because they have a set number of Michelin tyres that they get for the weekend, whether though the 5 cars we've not really seen yet are playing a long game for the weekend, saying, well, if we do one run in qualifying, that preserves some tyres to use fresh in the race.
And your qualifying pace isn't the be-all and end-all at this circuit, because there are a lot of overtaking opportunities thanks to the long straights. The circuit does have a very interesting impact on the cars as well, because as you come down through to Eau Rouge, it puts the car under a lot of compression, and that can actually wear the tyres a little more and certain other components in the car. So it may be a case of mechanical sympathy from those guys.
So it's Linus Lundqvist, who is currently on a good lap in the back of our picture. There is the Swede across line. He comes in his RR Racing entry, and he goes quickest at 2 minutes 12.347. So that puts him onto provisional pole by 97 thousandths of a second. Well, we can talk about the interesting impact on the cars, of course, but everything the teams learned this weekend is only for this weekend at Spa, with the context of the Dallara F312, because the news yesterday of the Dallara 320, the new car for next season.
Yes, and we need to be very careful that it is a Dallara 320. It's not a Formula 3 car, and that's one of the most interesting developments, that Euroformula Open is kind of casting itself as the leading European formula, hence the name Euroformula. And this new car should bring it to not only higher speeds, but a larger audience, I imagine.
The only thing that seemed to be missing from the press release was unlimited test drives to the commentary team, but we're sure that that will be rectified before the car hits the circuit, as it certainly looks very, very good from what we've seen, and that's going to be a new challenge for the teams next season. But it's great to kind of commit to the new car early. Everybody can make their plans, and which should hit the track later in the year. Now, Javier Gonzalez going really well so far in this session in his RP Motorsport entry. And RP Motorsport, of course, they've claimed the last couple of championships, dominantly so with Harrison Scott and Felipe Drugovich behind the wheel. And Gonzalez and Lundqvist currently exchanging fastest times.
Yeah, Gonzalez doesn't seem like he's lost anything by skipping the last few rounds of the championship. But he is relatively new to Formula 3 and do believe he hasn't driven the circuit prior to this year. RP Motorsport obviously has a huge amount of experience, although they are using a new engine. So this is only the second day they've been running their Spies unit.
So they've made the switch to the Spies engine, and at the moment it seems to be working very well for them. But it's Linus Lundqvist who is currently on a good lap at the moment. And Lundqvist, here he comes then out of Blanchimont. And coming to the weekend, sixth in the championship, looking for his first podium of the season, the reigning British Formula 3 champion. And on the basis of this session so far, which hasn't yet hit his halfway point, then he is currently looking well set, as he now goes quickest by 7 thousandths of a second, at 2 minutes 12.273.
He's been a clear favourite there in the second sector, which is where you get a lot of the twisty corners, which would suggest the car is probably the most stable, whereas a fast sector one can literally come from getting a good slipstream.
And this is something that we saw at Hockenheim, and I think it's going to be true this weekend, is the compromises in setup that the different teams are making both for qualifying and the race. Because what we've seen in years gone by here in the race in Spa is the teams that have gone with a little bit more wing in the qualifying sessions have then been eaten alive in the races by the cars with flatter wing profiles, towing their way past them, down the long straight, and then hanging on for dear life during Sector 2.
And we just saw a good example of why you should be careful with your wing selection there. As Linus Lundqvist came through Lacombe, the car was very loose. So they've obviously set that car up to be very strong during the corners, but also depends on brake bias. If you haven't got the car with a strong rear end, it could get very loose.
So this is interesting. Billy Munger has gone 11th on just his second lap of the session, and that suggests to me that Billy's gone out on a brand new set of Michelin tyres, whereas some of the cars that we've seen out so far, they've gone back into the pits and will possibly bolt on fresh rubber. But this is the problem with that strategy for Billy. He's caught the DriveX pairing as they came out of Radion onto the Kemmel straight. That would have cost him a little bit of time carving his way through that traffic. We'll see how much. Well, it's still his best Sector 1, but he will have had to have compromised maybe a tenth or so.
And it does look like the sun's come out as well, so maybe he's timed it with the weather to get the optimum track conditions.
That's what he will be hoping as he peels into the Bruxelles hairpin, which is ridiculously steep. The camera angle doesn't show you just how much that road falls away, and then on towards the double left-hander at Pouon for Billy Munger. And 42 thousandths of a second up on the rest of the field through Sector 1. He's got more cars touring towards the pit lane, or touring out of the pit lane, that he's going to catch momentarily, as the Team Motorpark quartet are all flying, and Liam Lawson the foremost of them, as we continue to follow Billy Munger's progress. Hanses, Sonoda, Marino Sato and Liam Lawson, but in particular Sato and Lawson all having had good first sectors. And the hypothesis was that that quartet were all going to do just one run in this session.
Yes, we still have 10 minutes to go, so there are a few laps they can get in. It does look like the clouds have cleared from our side of the circuit. Obviously, the circuit's so long, it could get a little darker on the other side, but this should help the teams that are on new tyres.
It really should, as Billy Munger picks his way through the final chicane, accelerates towards the timing beam. Now, what's this going to be for Billy? It's third place at 2 minutes 12.457, just shy of 2/10 adrift then of Linus Lundqvist's best from the session. Now, here comes the Motorpark Armada, and it's Marino Sato who goes fastest now with a 2:11.944 ahead of Liam Lawson into second position.
And that lap time is faster than Sato's benchmark from yesterday's free practice session. So it's only taken 2 laps the Motorpark team to get up to speed and start setting some good benchmarks.
Again, this is a circuit that would be familiar to them from prior competition in other series, as Yuki Tsunoda now looking to complete his lap, but Tsunoda bailed on that one. But Sato is the man to watch. He's not in traffic, but he's set the fastest first sector of anybody once more on this lap. So we are in for a very exciting final third of this qualifying session. We continue to follow the progress of Yuki Tsunoda. Tsunoda, who scored his first victory of the season in the second race at Hockenheim a fortnight ago. Julian Hanses picks his way through a little bit of traffic. There is Jack Doohan, and Yuki Tsunoda is going to be closing up onto all of this train of cars before too long.
Yes, Linus Lundqvist wouldn't have once been giving his rival Julian Hanses a tow. But we've got 20 of the 21 cars on track at the moment. We've only got Vortex, Cameron Das in the pits, so there's a lot of cars to work your way around.
Marino Sato is on an absolutely phenomenal lap at the moment, and he is 1.6 seconds up on his best from a lap ago, so that has the makings of being the benchmark time. Not sure that that's Marino Sato. It is
Stuart Wiltshire,
the legendary, if you follow British club racing, Stuart Wiltshire, making the step up to the Euroformula Open. And Stuart, is he going to do his best lap of the session? Indeed he does, a 2 minutes 16.023. Now Sato is the third car in that train, and he does a 2 minutes 10.5, notwithstanding the traffic, 1.5 seconds faster than everybody else. Marino Sato, who came into the season as one of maybe the slightly less storied of the Team Motorpark drivers, has been a driver who's really hit the rich vein of form.
Yes, he's put a lot of work in. He's certainly got fitter, I've noticed, since the start of the season. Really working hard, and even after free practice yesterday, he didn't realise he was quickest until we pointed out to him.
So he's behind Nikolai Kiergaard as he heads down the Kemmel Straight into Les Combes. Now the Carlin driver is not going to be in a hurry here to leap aside from Marino Sato. And why should he be? Because he's probably on his own flying lap as well. They are pursuing Stuart Wiltshire, who has finished in the top 3 in the MSV F3 Cup Championship on a couple of occasions. As he gives everybody some space through the Bruxelles hairpin, rejoins just in the path of Christian Hahn. And Sato, benefiting from that tow through Sector 1, if anybody else again through that first sector. But it's the middle sector where we'll see whether or not his lap time gets compromised a little bit. Stays clear of the curbs through Fania. It's interesting there talking about how they use the curbs, because the GT cars racing this weekend, they are all over those curbs, but they're just that bit too elevated for the Dallara F312.
Yeah, and you can go understeer and oversteer when you hit those curbs. A lot of the teams, depending on if they want to be fast on the straights or in the corners, will have different strategies with curbs purely in mind.
Well, Christian Hahn, behind this group of cars, seems to be an absolute flyer as he is carving through the traffic as well. Sato now into some clear air, so he's going to have to set aside this lap. But for my money, this would have been his third flying lap of the session. So we'll see just how much more of a window in terms of qualifying performance he can get from the tyre. Fastest first and third sectors anyway, and a lap time that would have almost been quick enough for pole in any event.
And Christian Hahn, despite being compromised by Stuart Wiltshire, has just gone up to 7th, and his Carlin teammate Billy Munger is up to 4th. Does look like a lot of the cars are getting a lot faster now.
Yep, so those that pitted mid-session are now on a run of flying laps, but nobody has got within the second of Marino Sato. Liam Lawson is 1.1 seconds adrift. Guilherme Samaru is now third, is 1.6 seconds adrift, but behind it's very close as Julian Hanses slips up into third position. The other driver who is due a good lap is Yuki Tsunoda, who's currently in 21st place. And Tsunoda goes third because Jack Doohan goes second. Oh, this is good now, as it's Sato 4 tenths clear of Doohan, Yuki Tsunoda a couple of tenths back, and then Linus Lundqvist into 4th. So it's Team Motorpark and Double R shooting out for pole.
And I'd watch Liam Lawson here. He's at the back of the train of cars that are currently in our picture. Didn't set the fastest Sector 1, but he's got just enough of a gap that his lap won't be compromised in the middle sector here.
And he was up fractionally through. Oh, and running wide there is Marino Sato. So he is unlikely to improve once more. Well, the temptation surely to have emerged into the path of Liam Lawson was avoided there for Marino Sato. So he gives his teammate a crack at a decent lap. So here is Lawson, who had a frustrating weekend at Hockenheim. Arguably the quickest driver over the course of the weekend, but he just couldn't quite get the results in the races. But he is, well, he's 8/10 away from pole through the middle sector. So clearly something for Liam Lawson not quite working. He's got more traffic ahead of him as well. It's the brace of Carlin drivers. Then it's Aldo Fastante.
Locked a brake there going into the penultimate corner, which wouldn't have helped him at all.
Blasts out the bus stop chicane, 3.5 minutes to run. Lawson completes the lap and goes fourth, 2 minutes 11.368.
There's a rogue yellow flag waving away at the last corner there. I don't think Marshall intended to wave it, but it's fluttering away in the breeze.
Whether or not the drivers will see it. So it's Sato now from Lucas Dunner, who's gone second for Teo Martin Motorsport with a 2 minutes 10.893. 3 minutes left in the session. Christian Hahn in sixth. We've got car 29 under investigation for unsafely rejoining the circuit after running the ride. That is, I think, the moment we saw when Stuart Wiltshire came back on track in the path of Christian Hahn. As Yuki Tsunoda goes second now at 2 minutes 10.780.
And Pierre-Louis Chevet's just completed a lap as well. He's still only down in 16th, and he's the second of the RP Motorsport cars. So he's obviously struggling here.
Teammate Javier Gonzalez, though, is in 8th and going strongly. We have got the top 9 all covered by under 1 second. And we've got fraction over a lap time left in the session. Here then is Aldo Fastante down through Pouon. And he set his personal best through sector 1 on this lap, but it was a little bit adrift of some of his rivals. As Tepe Naturi goes 12th, Christian Hahn, no, it's Billy Munger rather, goes wide at Pouon. Here's Lucas Dunner, living dangerously through Fania.
I think we did see Billy Munger do that on the previous lap as well when Liam Lawson was setting his flying lap. So maybe as the clouds have come back, the cars such as Sato and Munger that went out together are struggling a little bit.
So Lucas Dunner, this lap unlikely to do much to improve his situation. Jack Doohan, however, could be worth looking at. What we don't know for Doohan, of course, is where he is relative to traffic. Javier Gonzalez, just at the front of our picture, is also on the cusp of an improvement. It would appear that many of the drivers now are through the optimum qualifying window of their tyres. It's accelerating through over the line. Gonzalez improves his time, goes up into 7th position. Lucas Dunner does not improve, stays where he was. Jack Doohan, that good lap, he's a couple of seconds adrift where he'd want to be through sector 2, so he is unlikely to improve any further. Just 1 minute left in this qualifying period. The Fortec teammates Callum Williams and Cameron Dass have both set their best laps and have gone to 11th and 12th respectively. So the blast along the Kemmel Straight. And on this last lap of qualifying, don't appear to be too many drivers looking likely to improve, but the exception to that rule is Liam Lawson, who's just gone through the speed trap at 250 kilometres per hour and has therefore set his best sector 1 of the session.
I believe that would be 150 miles an hour in the other form of measurement.
Which is rather rapid in anybody's money. But what, of course, we don't know is where he is in terms of traffic. Possibly he's behind teammate Sato. There's the checkered flag, so the clock has ticked down. Tepe Naturi leaves his best till last, goes 7th. And that's one of the Red Bull back cars running right now. Is that Lawson? It is Liam Lawson. Oh, so he's lost the chance on that last lap to improve.
He was very loose even as he got back on the power there, so maybe something wrong with the tyres. which is what we did see teammate Marino Sato doing at the same corner, and they both came out the pits at roughly the same time.
And it's really through Pouan, I think, the ones that have got a setup that is favouring being slippery on the straights. They're just struggling to get that traction through Pouan and overstepping the mark with the mechanical grip available to them.
Yes, and that would go hand in hand with the fact that we saw Sato going fastest through the third sector, which has a long Blanchimont corner without traffic as well.
So this is going to be really interesting in the race, because Liam Lawson, as a result of all that, is going to qualify in 8th place, if not lower, if somebody pips him to the post late on. So the rest of them across the line. Callum Williams improves his time, and that bumps him back up into 12th position. Rui Andrade and Franco Colapinto set their best times of the session for 18th and 19th. So an absolutely fascinating grid. Marino Sato and Yuki Tsunoda on the front row, perhaps not a surprise. Jack Doohan and Lucas Dunner then on row 2, likewise, with a third row of Christian Hahn and Linus Lundqvist, and then Tapinatori to 7th, ahead of Liam Lawson. And I think everybody who was likely to improve has indeed done so. It's only a couple of cars yet to bring their session to a conclusion. So here is how they qualified then. Marino Sato, pole position once more. And alongside him in the front row, Yuki Tsunoda over a quarter of a second back. Jack Doohan and Lucas Dunner, a very competitive row 2. Head of Christian Hahn, whose strong pace continues in 5th, leading the Carlin charge. Head of Linus Lundqvist, both of those drivers pursuing their first podium of the year. Tepe Natori and then Liam Lawson on row 4, with Javier Gonzalez in 9th, ahead of Julian Hanses, who, despite the banners from his fan club opposite our commentary box, only finishes in 10th. Nikolai Kiergaard in 11th from Callum Williams, the first of the Fortet runners, in 12th. Then it's Guilherme Samaya and Cameron Das. Billy Munger in 15th after a couple of his best laps being lost to running wide at Pouan. Aldo Fastante should charge from 16th. Pierre-Louis Chauvet in 17th. Rui Andrade and Franco Colapinto 18th and 19th. And then CF Racing on their debut, Stefano Lini heading teammate Stuart Wiltshire. It should be a very good race, though later on today we get underway this afternoon's race in terms of our coverage at 3:35 Central European time. Do make sure you join us, because the racing at Spa, always good, and particularly, Elliot, we've got a lot of drivers who will be, I think, a little bit disappointed with the way that session finished up.
Definitely. There's because we have 21 vehicles on track at the same time, there's a lot of compromised laps, and there's a lot to talk about on the strategy front here. It's very interesting to see. I'm going to hopefully talk to some of these teams and drivers and ask how much wing were they running, and which way they're going with their car, and if they're thinking about the race more than qualifying.
And hopefully they may even tell you the truth when you speak to them, because
always a risk.
I expect there'll be a lot of poring over the pictures of this session, because what appeared to be the case is that the double R cars of Jack Doohan and Linus Lundqvist had a bit more traction through Sector 2 compared to the Team Motorpark cars, and the Team Motorpark runners were struggling actually to string more than 2 quick laps together before they were starting to really suffer with some grip through the higher speed corners in Sector 2.
And it did look like when the track was cooler, the Motorpark cars had the same issue. They looked a little unstable during the second sector, which may be to do with a change in track temperature, or maybe they just dialed their cars with brake bias in a different method.
But they will look at what they can change maybe for the race later on, because when we do go racing, it is 13 laps or 35 minutes, depending on whether any of them fling it at the scenery or not. Hopefully they won't, but 13 laps given in this qualifying session. The most laps that any of the drivers did was 11. So it'll be really interesting to see what, if any, changes the teams make over the lunch break. But again, very close. The top 10 cars all separated by 1 second. And once more, the parity of competition at the sharp end of the Euroformula Open coming to the fore. We will hear from our pole sitter, Marino Sato, before too long. And for Sato, this is his 3rd pole position in succession. He's certainly becoming the man to look to for the single lap performance. But there, perfectly exemplified, is just how much of a risk he was taking.
Yeah, that's a great correction there, and that was in slow motion as well, so his reaction times would have been even faster than that.
Oh, Julian Hans says, work to do from 10th on the grid in this afternoon's race, but at Spa-Francorchamps, eminently possible to do that. About the most panoramic coffee shop in international motorsport at the top of the race control building. Gives a fine view, not only to our cameraman, but also to the Eau Rouge and Radiant section of the circuit.